Now that Greece is in the game, we're going to look at the civilization meta, see what you should be playing as, depending on where you are in the game and what troops you use. Before we get started, I just want to say if you aren't subscribed already, I'd really appreciate it if you would. It helps grow the channel and helps me create more quality Rise of Kingdoms content. In the early game, there's really only one option. That's China. The reason you should pick China is right here. This is building speed. Building speed is super important in the early game. Until you're probably almost level 20. City Hall level 20. Because the faster you build, faster things snow. You can get more bonuses, more troops, more resources, everything. Everything snowballs by what level the other things in your city are. And doing it, 5% building speed increase with China. Super important. If you decide you don't want to be China, that's fine. There's honorable mention here in Egypt. Egypt only has a 1.5% increased building speed, but it pairs that with this 1.5% research speed. So these two things combined help you move things a little faster, This research also takes a lot of time. It's not quite a bottleneck in the early game as it gets to in the mid to late game, especially to try to get towards D5. But these little 1%, 5% boosts can be really helpful while still maintaining some of your building boosts. Second I'll mention we're going to put here is Japan. Japan has an increased resource gathering speed, and that is a bottleneck for a lot of players in the early game. You don't have enough resources, and so what you're really looking to do is you're just trying to get as much as you can. So Japan is also super useful for your farms. Any of your farm accounts should be on Japan. This 5% resource gathering speed just helps. Adds up, and you get more resources. Then you can spend those on getting more troops, faster upgrades, etc., etc. Now that you've reached the mid game, your city hall is 20, 21, 23 even, you should consider moving away from China. You're starting to run into bottlenecks not so much from your building speed, but in your research speed. Korea here, 3% research. This is the highest of any of the civilizations. Granted, it's not super useful, but considering that it takes thousands of hours of research in order to get T5 and max out your research tree, every little boost really, really helps. 3% research speed will save you days of research speed ups. That is really, really helpful and really, really important moving forward. I'm going to give Egypt another shout out here. Another good option in the mid game. Gives you research and building boosts, and so these things are very important. Depending on what your bottleneck are, depending on how your speed ups run out, you may want to be Egypt instead of Korea. Also, the Egypt civilization a little cooler, just based on the recent updates and things. For to be more focused towards Egypt. So if you like the way Egypt looks over Korea, go for it. Both are good options, but Korea is just slightly better. Once you reach the late game, otherwise known as KVK, you're starting to think, okay, what civilization probably works best? And across the board, it's probably France. Boosted troop health helps no matter what your troops are. The biggest, most important thing is hospital healing speed by 20%. Speed ups are a big issue for a lot of players when they get into KVK, so being able to heal faster is really, really important. And this just helps everyone. It doesn't really matter what troops you use, what troops you specialize in, what commanders you use. France will be useful for everyone no matter what. Very popular among a lot of the whales as they spend, 5 marches or 7 in SOC and just run through so many troops. Having this boosted healing speed up, super, super helpful. That being said, France is not the only option. If you choose to specialize in a certain troop type, there can be better choices. Britain is one of the two interesting choices for archer commanders. Increased archer attack by 5%. Somewhat helpful. Archers are pretty heavy in attack anyway, so it doesn't seem to be too much. But the big thing is this troop training speed. Extra 5% troop training speed. That's going to save you, 30, 45 minutes every time you go to train a troop. So it adds up time over time, and you have a larger army, so you can just throw those things into rallies, into flags, without a care in the world. It'll help save you time and help you get more points in some of those big troop training events as well. Once you've actually trained all your archers, you don't really need the troop training speed as much. You can go look towards the Ottomans. They probably have the best altogether additions for archers. Boosted health and something that's a little weak. Troop march speed, which is super big for archers because they're pretty slow and they get hunted out by cavalry. This active skill damage boost as well. All three of these things combined means that Ottoman is definitely the best choice if you're an archer commander. However, you may still want to go to France, do the boosted healing speed, but if you're just trying to smack some people around, Ottoman Empire is the way to go. When it comes to infantry, there's not as many good options for you. You have to look to some of the newer civilizations. Here you have Vikings. Boost your infantry attack by 5%. Counterattack damage is really useful, and troop load doesn't really matter unless you're looting. So looking at the first two abilities, those things are pretty helpful for infantry commanders. Attack is hard to come by, as infantry troops are higher in defense, and counterattack damage always helpful because, especially when you're getting swarmed, having stronger counterattack damage will do a lot more damage to your opponents. In my opinion, though, the best infantry-focused civilization by now is Greece. Greece has two main things going for it. First, infantry health, super helpful. 5% boost, we love to see it. Second, this rallied army damage. If you're a whale, you're going to be rallying. It's just the way it goes. And so having this extra 5% army damage is going to be super helpful in getting your trades. Whereas, smaller players aren't probably going to use that rallied army damage as much. This is more focused towards the stronger commanders in the game. And this will allow you to win and get better trades in your rallies. To be noted, stone gathering speed, not super great for infantry commanders. They don't need stone. So I'm not really sure what they're doing giving that to Greece. I think it's probably just to sort of balance it out, appeal to a wider swath of players, but this is something that could be very helpful for infantry players going forward. Lastly, we'll talk cavalry. Cavalry, start out with Germany. This boosted attack, boosted troop training speed, and boosted AP point recovery. This is by far the best nation if you're going to go with something like trying to push in KVK for those honor points. Cavalry are the fastest, which means you're probably using them to run and hit as many barbs as possible. Troop training speed, always helpful. And AP point recovery. 10% is huge considering that most of the boosts are like 35 to 50%. So this is, an extra 20% of your boost, basically, getting from AP recovery just from picking Germany. So this is actually what I'm using right now as a cavalry main. I think it's helpful, especially because we're in the off season, to just boost my troop training and also so I can run as many forts as I can. Also, as a cav commander, I'd like to give an honorable mention to Arabia. Boosted cav attack is pretty helpful as well, and this 10% boosted damage to barbarians and other neutral units, okay, not super important, but the boosted rally damage, very helpful. This is another one that's more focused towards Wales, temporarily using Arabia, but looking at it, it's great for taking out things like Crusader camps or other things like the PvE stuff in the game, but also great if you're trying to get good trades on your flags. All this being said, France is still the best option in the late game. You're going to have the boosted healing speed, increased health across the board. You really need wood unless you're an archer guy, but it's nice to have all these boosts in one place. And so if you're just looking for a flexible late game thing that you're never going to go wrong with, France is the civilization that you should be playing with in Rise of Kingdoms in 2023. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, or comment down below if you have any new ideas or things you'd like me to see go over in Rise of Kingdoms.